Now, the Irish government is set to begin a legal challenge against the UK government over its decision to offer immunity for Troubles-era crimes.
As the consequences of the Troubles echoes on, it's important to reflect on the human cost of the 30-year conflict.
Well, in that vein, the author Dr. Susan Phoenix has released a new audiobook voiced by her son, detailing the incredible story of her late husband, Ian Phoenix, who was a paratrooper, then a police officer during the Troubles. And
Dr. Phoenix joins us now. There you are. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining. Is it OK to call you Susan? Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. Can you tell us a little bit about the audiobook that you've written about your husband's experiences?
Yeah, it's actually the audio version of a book that was written almost 30 years ago now, because it is the anniversary of the crash of the Chinook that killed 29 people, counter-terrorist officers in Northern Ireland, next year. So we've timed it by sheer accident to come out just as the anniversary. It's a book that has continued to intrigue people because it was when I look back, an incredible life and a very different way to live, 25 years of the Northern Ireland Troubles. And it was quite an abnormal way that we lived. It wasn't until my husband died that we realised just what it was and how it was. It was dangerous, it was exciting, it was frustrating, and so many people lost their lives in that 25 years period, over 3,500 people.
And it gets to this point of the prosecutions, of the proposals about not going after individuals on both sides anymore. That cuts deep to both communities in Northern Ireland. There are those who fought against terrorists, and there are those who felt that there were others on the other side committing awful crimes too. What's your view of how the government has chosen to try and sort of put a stop to these prosecutions?
It's interesting because I hadn't heard about this until just recently. I've been away, so I'm a bit on the spot here. But the fact that they want to draw a line under it, I'm not sure. It depends on which line and why. Because since I wrote this book, I have had a lot of harassment from government agencies, security people, and families of hurt people to find out if I have more information. Because, of course, 30 years is nothing in the life of people who are suffering, have suffered, and exactly what did happen. So I'm not really... I think my husband would have agreed with the Irish government. These things be properly organised, and the British government can't just stop doing what they've been doing.
Susan, I mean, the book does sound incredibly emotive, and I'm sure it must have been very emotional for your son narrating it as well. Can you paint us a little pen portrait of what it was like for your husband during the Troubles? I mean, he must have faced some incredibly dangerous situations.
Absolutely. He and his colleagues, I mean, the book tells the story of him joining the RUC, his life, boyhood ambition after he left the parachute regiment, and we moved to Northern Ireland. I thought I was just going to be a policeman's wife, but that isn't the way it was. Our whole life became involved in security. So we had to think about our own security, our family security. You couldn't do the washing, you couldn't hang uniforms out. We had to look under our car for booby-trap bombs. We had to make sure we were not followed home. We became very counter-terrorist agents in our own right. Even the teenagers, when the children became teenagers, they had to be taught to look under the car. It was just a very different way of life. And it wasn't until we stepped out of that. It wasn't until Ian was killed in the Chinook accident and the whole world came to see what had happened to those men who died that we realised what an abnormal life we lived. We had a gun under our pillow when we were in bed, all of those things. But it became the norm because you learn to adapt. I'm very much in favour of the fact we adapt to whatever comes into our lives if we allow our own inner strength. He was a good man. He loved his country. He loved people of all sides of the religious divide. He just wanted peace, and he was working for peace. He ended up, of course, in charge of a terrorism unit, which was totally different kettle of fish, and saw some of the most awful things that were happening undercover that no one actually got to hear about until much later.
That sounds an incredible lifestyle you must have led. What lasting effect has it had on you, and indeed your son, obviously?
Well, my son and my daughter have been fantastic adults. They're now both middle-aged, as I'm elderly, and the resilience that we learnt about there and how to cope with daily life, not to run away crying at everything, and to stop, take time and think about what you can do to deal with anything that comes your way, and also to help. I think when you're giving out to other people, which we did a lot, I worked cross-culturally with the deaf community when I was there. So I was crossing the border, much to people's surprise. My husband came with me sometimes. He wasn't allowed to cross the border because he wasn't allowed to take his weapon with him. And we had many friends from all corners of the community. And after he died, we had letters from people saying, gosh, we didn't think we'd know a policeman. So that was good. Human people are human people, and we can deal, but we need communication. And that's what we learned. Communication is very, very important.
Susan, thank you so much for that, for talking to us today, and good luck with the audio version. It's called Phoenix Policing the Shadow. That's Dr. Susan Phoenix. May we wish you a very Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you very much.